Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the January 2021 Southern Fried DNN user group meeting. We are excited to be here tonight, though I can say a bit tired. David Poindexter and myself have both had the same kind of schedule, it sounds like. The last week or so, I've run a couple of all-nighters or close to it, and am pretty tired. But even that wouldn't stop me from getting together and hanging out with all of my friends here in the DNN community to talk about what's new and what's happening and what's coming up soon in the DNN community and in the ecosystem of modules and everything DNN. So with that, we'll jump right into the heart of our meeting. Tonight, we're going to be running through a topic that is really the point of why we even do this, you know, why David and I and Clint Patterson got together at a point several years back and decided that we wanted to continue moving forward with the original user group, the Queen City Dynamic User Group, QC Doug, and you know, why we're here at SoFri, and that is an idea to share community, but to give back and to help each other. And we'll talk about that more as we get into the topic for tonight, which is the idea of helping each other. And we're going to be focusing, no, wrong one. We're going to be focusing on the DNN Open Help Slack workspace. We're going to talk about that, share some of our favorite highlights from that, how you use it, how you become part of it, what you can get out of it, what you can give to it. And that's really going to be our focus tonight. And we're going to dive into helping anyone else who's online with us. If you have questions, and you can pitch them our way, or if you want to text David or I, or put anything into the Slack Open Help workspace, we will talk about it here, either with concepts, questions, and ideas, or we'll put it to roundtable and discuss it at large. So that's our meeting tonight. But as we do, we start off every meeting by talking about community events and things that are coming up. And really for that, we will dive right into DNN Summit. We have DNN Summit just a touch over a month away on the 24th and 25th of February. We will all be getting together virtually to meet and do what we always do at DNN community conferences. We're going to have an array of speakers talking on topics that are important to them and impactful to them. So there will be a range of speakers on a range of topics. But this time, instead of going to Denver or going to Boston or going to Florida, we are all going to be going to our desk, and we're going to be doing this virtually. It was decided a while back that with the situation with the pandemic and quarantines, we couldn't reliably or stably plan out a trip to Florida or other things like that. And that the idea of having a virtual conference was something that we should try out this year. David, I'm going to pass you the mic here to talk about DNN Summit and chime in here with me in a moment. But I think one of the first things that we can chime right in about is attendance and signups. What we normally find with DNN Summits traditionally, and DNN Con or DNN conferences in general, is that we normally get a large amount of signups about a month before the event. And that hasn't not been the case with this virtual event. We have had steady, constant signups from day one of beginning to promote it virtually. And we're also seeing a range must be my favorite word for the day. We're having an array of new users signing up. So I feel that it's going to be an interesting and different community event than we've had in the past, just because we have a new mixture of people involved and people participating. So as we get closer, that excitement is going to be building even higher. David, you want to talk a little bit about some of the things you're excited about for DNN Summit?
Oh man, that's coming up soon, isn't it?
It is. Have you finished your sessions?
You know, I haven't started.
No comment?
So I came up with a title and description, so that's good. I mean, at least I got something there,
Yep.
No, I'm actually really excited about it. I know you and I have shared a sentiment of, a virtual event is just not necessarily something that in the past we'd have really gotten all excited about doing. Just we're all
Yeah.
about mingling in
Honestly.
person, having a drink with somebody, and just hanging out, talking shop. But considering the pandemic and all that, I mean, it's like, well, I mean, this is kind of maybe the new norm for a while, for something like this. But I think it'll be kind of cool because I'm excited about meeting some new people in the community that we didn't even know exist, or wouldn't have had a chance to come to an in-person event, either because of cost or distance or anything like that, or time. So it'll be nice to network with some of those, and I believe there will be some opportunities to network. So that'll be nice too. Of course, the session lineup is stellar, and some of the normal people that you would expect to see speaking at a DNN event are out there, but also some new faces as well. Some great content. It looks like a nice balance between the different tracks. So that's nice.
Yeah. So chiming in right on that, as usual in this type of conference, we have different tracks going on during the event. And so when you come in to sit into sessions, you can choose, where you want to go. You're going to be able to read the titles and the general descriptions of a session, but overall they fall into categories of design-related topics, marketing-related topics, kind of an intro-level DNN related topics. That doesn't necessarily mean there's going to be an introduction to DNN, but it's going to be, a lighter session, more about using and integrating and administrating rather than development or creation or heavy coding type things. And then, development, security and upgrades, and then sponsor tracks. The transition from an in-person event to a virtual event has meant that there's been some creative work of how to do that. The platform that we're going to be using is the Hop-In platform. That's the one that some people in the community participated in and came to the Hop-In event that Gifford Watkins ran for DNN Global. And it's the same platform as that. We've spent time learning how to use that platform and some of the benefits you can get out of it. So we're going to see some interesting things. For instance, when we talk about our sponsors, we have a set of sponsors, and as always, you're wanting to and you're encouraging the attendees to spend time, getting to know these sponsors. These sponsors are ones who are helping put on the event. They're helping support the DNN community. But overall, they're people who have a lot to give to any organization that uses .NET Note, because these are experts in DNN. These are people in our community who step up to do more with DNN and help clients do more with DNN. And so there will be both booths, virtual booths for you to attend and take a look at and learn more. There are going to be sessions where sponsors can speak and talk about their services, and you can ask questions to them. So we kind of have a set of the main people who are sponsors. I should have pulled up, and I'm not sure if it's easy to get to from within the website, but there have been video interviews, a series of video interviews going on with each one of the gold level sponsors, so that you can get to know a little bit about them before we get to the event. But there'll be those booths for the sponsors and sessions for the sponsors. Within the time of the conference, in between sessions, there are breakout time periods for question and answer. There are time periods for networking, for you to mingle with everyone else who's there and to post questions and to have sidebars and conversations, just like you would at a physical conference. So there's a lot of opportunity to both meet and speak with the speakers, the sponsors, and with each other. And as David was alluding to, one of the things that I get the most out of within the DNN conference is meeting new users, meeting new people, and hearing their stories and learning what they did and how they solved the problem. And, oh, did they also experience this other problem? And here's what we did when we experienced that. and it's the camaraderie and community nature of sharing and helping each other that I really thrive on when we're talking about DNN conferences. And so that's a pretty good segue into the topic of what we are going through here today. So as we leave DNN Summit, David, can you think of anything else we should mention before we leave that screen and we move on to our next item?
It's not too late to register. So if you're on here and haven't registered yet, or if you know someone, or you're watching the playback, just feel free to register. You can register all the way up to the last minute. Although it would be great if you registered a little sooner so we knew you were coming.
True. Compared to other conferences, you can't just the day of decide you want to be in Denver and sign up, but you can for DNN Summit. So even if it's already started and it's noon, you can absolutely register and join. So that is certainly possible. One thing I was going to mention about registration and about participating is that if you kind of pay attention before the conference, I'm sure there are going to be opportunities to participate in Twitter and to communicate with speakers and with sponsors for the different things that are going on. So stay tuned and watch your social streams and get involved. This is a community event for us to participate with each other. So there's going to be a lot of opportunity there, and we're going to be talking about it and making a bunch of buzz. Okay, so we move next into news and information from within the community. I stop off in the community blogs location, so that's dnncommunity.org/blogs, just to see what's been put out recently and what's new. One of the main things that I have been paying attention to and enjoying thoroughly are the bits of information that Steve Krantzman has been putting out for the CK editor within DNN. And we'll possibly talk about that in just a little bit, because that has been one of the things that people are asking questions about inside of the Slack workspace, the DNN Open Help. And there's a lot of good information here and tips and tricks on how to stylize and to clear up things and change default actions of what's going on within the CK editor provider that is the heart, that is the tool, that is the heart of the HTML module. In most versions of DNN, when they ship, you've got a version of CK editor in there, and this are some excellent articles that help you work with that.
Hey Steve, I'm not a big user of the editor myself, but these articles are great. I mean, very well written. So thank you for doing those and taking so much time to. Very clear, very cool.
Oh, thanks. I appreciate that.
Very well organized. And we're going to talk about them in just a minute, because one of the things that I did for the Slack Open Help workspace prep is I went through to look at questions that people have asked and repeatedly asked, or if I did a search for certain terms, how many threads or topics were there. And CK editor questions are pretty frequent in the Open Help area. So that's going to be a good segue here in just a moment. David, what else should we have here as far as new information? Because it's been a little bit of a lull from December here till now. So there aren't a lot of new posts or new items up recently. Community, what can we think of here that's important to mention?
Well, 9.8.1 was released back on January the 6th, and it's a pretty significant release. Yes, it's a dot release, but it's got a lot of noteworthy changes in it. So check that out if you haven't already, and get your sites upgraded.
Yeah, I can't think what I was. Well, no, I know what I was doing. The beginning of January, I was moving back into my house. Yes, I had noticed that 9.8.1 had dropped. So after this meeting, I will be going to take a look at that and finding out more about it for sure. Okay. So if there's anything else community related, news for DNN or news for things that are coming up, anyone who's on with us, feel free to chime in and bring those up. Otherwise, we'll start to dive into our topic here. So there was a point in time in DNN help. When you wanted to get help with something, you went to the forums. The forums were a location that was alive and hopping and had people answering questions regularly and participating in conversations about what's right and what's wrong and how to do different things. And I'll bite off a bit of Mitch Sellers' phrasings to say that right, wrong, or indifferent, time moves on, and the locations where a mass of people get together to participate or do something changes over time. And several years back, Slack became one of the messaging and communication systems that my own company, we started using. And I have a memory that someone who used Slack religiously told me that once my company started using Slack, we were going to stop using email. And at the time, I couldn't imagine that. We used email constantly for everything. And within the company, we emailed each other constantly. And I couldn't imagine not doing that. But the day that we started working with Slack and we realized that we could have files there, we could have our text messaging, because we did have previously, before Slack, I think we had Trillion. We used Trillion because there were some people on the Apple clients, some people still on AOL and Messenger, a few different things. So we switched over to Slack, dropped all those things, and didn't look back. It became the main thing that we use in my business for communication inside of the team and even with some people outside of the team. So when Aderson Oliveira came up with the idea of setting up a Slack location for DNN, I was thrilled and all in. I was already part of 8 or 9 different Slack workspaces. That's not a lot. If you talk with Mitch Sellers, he's a member of not just dozens, multiple dozens of Slack workspaces. David, how about you? How much do you use Slack outside of this Open Help? Do you use it a bunch?
16 workspaces as of right now that are active.
16 workspaces right there. There you go. I've got 3, 6, 9, 10. So anyways, it was a natural move to begin using it. And David will, bemoan the point that he has been part of conversations repeatedly, multiple times, where people want to talk about what is the better place to have help, what is the better place to have answers. Because one of the downsides of working in Slack is that it's hard to find stuff that's old. You don't read through Slack like articles and find help that someone gave 2 years ago. You also don't have Google search picking it up so that it becomes part of the public record of things that are there for helping other people in DNN. So it is a different beast. It's not like forums. It's not like articles where people are helping. But there's a big primary difference. It is immediate. It is that instant gratification and satisfaction of someone saying, hey, I've got this strange issue. And immediately 3 people who are on say, oh, hey, me too. I took care of this. This is what I did. And you get that back and forth instant communication and instant gratification of participating in a real-time conversation. So more personal than forums and more connecting than those things. I'm a huge fan of Slack, and I'm thrilled to both be part of and participate in what Aderson here started with the DNN Open Help. So, a couple of things about this. This is called DNN Open Help. If you are not a member already of the DNN Open Help and you want to join the DNN Open Help, it is a pretty easy thing to do. What you are able to do is go to the main home for the domain, which went away because I'm logged into it on a browser window here, but it is openhelp.slack.com. It was invented as an idea, given birth by Aderson, with his intent that every Friday we would do Open Help Friday. And he wanted to get together several, big brains in the DNN community, get MVPs, get, several of us who, talk and experience DNN daily to be available every Friday to just help people. And if we did so, we would get a momentum going of every Friday. People would know that there was going to be live people there helping. So he began the community and would start every Friday by saying, welcome to Open Help. Here are the ground rules, here are the channels, and here's how you participate. Good morning, everyone. When he released the Open Help and left it off to kind of continue organically on its own for several weeks, I continued that tradition. It was a fun tradition. But I don't know that it's necessary anymore. Many of the channels and many of the items have so many people present that there's almost always someone on or online and available to help answer questions or chime in. It's never more than a few minutes before you get either snarky comments or vastly intelligent comments and good help and good answers to what you're asking about. So the Openhealth Slack is a location that you can come. If you're not already a member, you can go to that openhelp.slack.com and join the Slack workspace to then participate. As it was originally described by Adderson, we have a set of channels here. These channels are our topic groups. It's not terribly strict. You can really talk about anything anywhere. But in general, there's a channel for third-party modules and talking about integration and updates and putting out a question of, hey, is there a new version of XYZ out there? Or I'm using, XYZ, does it work in DNN 9.8.1? So these questions are kind of organized into the third-party module group. Administrators is a section where we generally talk about using DNN as a system and as administrators, either managing DNN or managing clients and their use of DNN, and it's more general for you as an integrator of DNN or as a user of DNN. Coders is a section that can get more involved. There will be discussions and there will be snippets of code and screenshots out of Visual Studio. And coders is really general questions. And so you'll see everything there about what library or reference is being deprecated and what's coming up in its place, and those types of things inside of the coder section. An Evoke channel is present that helps people talk about some of the specific issues or specific nuances of problems that might arise for the version of DNN that is the Evoke licensed versions of DNN. Plenty of little conversations going on there. General is everything. That is an open topic section for everything from DNN, but also external outside of DNN type of questions. So general web questions. We'll reference some in a minute, but people will talk about HIPAA relation, guidance and ADA questions and all kinds of things like that in the general section. Random is often reserved in Slack in general, where random is one of the channels that is created by default when you create a workspace. Random is your fun water cooler standby and talk about something goofy, wish everybody Merry Christmas or what have you. And I'll share some favorites here in just a moment from that. Social is mentions. Let's load that one up. Social is mentions that come out of Twitter and things where, actually, I'm not 100% positive. David, do you know, what is it picking up off of here? Is it simply DNN related tags, DNN system, DNN CMS? What does it pick up for in social here? Do you know?
Yes, it's actually following the @DNN awareness Twitter handle. So it's integrated. So anytime there's a post from it retweets, because that's a bot, that's
yeah, no.
So ultimately it's anything with the DNN CMS tag that gets put there.
Because that's the one that's following that. Yeah, that makes sense. All right. So social is a good place to catch up on different things. One of my favorite things about this is it'll show me that highlight icon if I have not seen something. So it's a good way for me to catch up and catch the last 5 things that have come up recently since last time I looked. Themers is the last channel that I'll point out, and that is for people working with skins and themes and issues with styling within DNN sites. So as an just to finish it out, the other thing you were able to do is have direct messages and direct conversation with anyone who's inside of the DNN Open Help workspace. So this is a location that you can reach out to and talk to, plenty of other people. You don't have to know their email address or remember their email address. You can open up a direct message with people and begin those conversations. So this is kind of showing some of my direct conversation histories. So with that, I'll stop talking for just a moment and I've opened it up to David and opened it up to the group. Just a starter question maybe from, we'll start with David and then we'll kind of go around with folks in the group who want to chime in. Describe, what is something that DNN Open Help has done for you or that you have experienced in using it? Because there's a reason that people try it out, get connected, but then they stay connected and they stay using it. It's because it's useful. You either gave something to it or you got something from it. So that sounds like a good starter point of conversation to get the ball rolling. How about you, David?
And it's like multifold for me because like I like trying to help people in there because like even if I don't know the answer and I've got a few minutes to spare, I'll go and try to figure out the answer. And so it's kind of a learning tool as well as helping somebody else out. Two, it's a nice area to kind of debate things because not everybody sees things the same way, so you always learn a different way of looking at it or a different way of approaching something or solving a problem. So I've learned so many little tips and tricks from there. It's really nice. It's also a great area because no other place has that many DNN people at one place at the, to really get an announcement out about something, that's important for the community. So that's nice. And of course, the banner is really good from time to time, especially when we start talking in emojis or Giphies,
Yep. Even just chiming in and saying that you saw something, you get a pretty quickly visible way to see that people have said hello or said thank you or responded with something that was going on. So there's a bit of fun there instantly. How about there you go, that works perfectly. How about folks who are with us today? We were talking and we said hi. Steve kind of said hi just a moment ago, but how about any of you? Let's kind of pass the mic around. How have you utilized the Slack workspace, and what have you gotten out of it?
Hey, this is Jeremy. Can you guys hear me?
Hey, Jeremy, buddy, how are you?
Good. Yeah, no, I've been using Slack for a while. We used to use Microsoft Teams. We were a beta tester. I hated it so much. And when we switched to Slack, it was phenomenal. Anyone else a Teams beta tester and felt like it was built with that what was that called? Light scrape? Or I felt like it was built with some stupid tool that they couldn't add features to. Anyhow, enough about that. Slack's awesome. And I enjoy helping people, and getting fast answers in here is the best thing in the world, especially when people like Daniel are on at 1 in the morning and he's got some really cool, complicated answer for something in web config and solves my problem in 5 seconds. It's awesome. So
that's right. I'm
in there all the time. I'm in about 8 different Slack channels, and this is one of the best. And it's lots of fun.
Well, Daniel, you posted a picture. How about you? How do you enjoy using the Slack workspace?
Well, I love it. I think it's a great place for the community to chat and for quick questions that you're a little stuck on something, and it's a quick media. You can have pictures, you can fire up a quick Zoom meeting with someone. It's a very cool media to get quick help.
We have the free edition. We have the unpaid edition, but within the paid edition of Slack, not to turn this into a commercial for Slack, but within the paid edition, and where you pay for seats of users, so you pay specifically for the number of people who are using it, continuing the commercial and the unasked for advertisement for Slack as a business tool. If you have 7 or 8 people in your team and 2 or 3 of the people just stop using Slack because they don't participate in it frequently, Slack gives you a credit back for them. Once it notices that they are not using the system as much, the next month you will get $5 back per person that wasn't using it that much. I think that's a wonderful stance for them as a business and as an organization, that they're not just getting you to sign up and pay. They want you to use the system and they want to bill you if you use it. So it is a very friendly system from that standpoint. But anyways, paid version.
Yeah, the marketing name they have for it is fair billing.
You know, I have to say one of the things that I really like about it is, you know, I don't really know personally anybody that uses DNN from my circle. And it's a nice way to be connected to other like-minded people out there that just aren't around me.
Yep, absolutely. Absolutely. So I was going to say that if you're using it for business, the paid version has audio and VoIP capabilities. And within my team, who are in California and Texas and here in North Carolina, especially during quarantine, we all now jump onto Slack meetings where we will just call each other and suddenly go like this into a video chat window. And then we're using it inside of what we're used to working with. I know that sounds novel. I'm sorry. I know that sounds normal and what we're used to now because of quarantine. But I swear, a year ago, that was pretty exciting and new territory. So it's a big deal. It's a big deal. Steve, I like your video background there for the Millennium Falcon. Some of my normal videos backgrounds are the Millennium Falcon, and some of my pictures, I don't know where they are. We'll find them. I'll find them in a bit. Because at DNN Summit last year, we were all fortunate right before quarantine lockdown, before really things hit. We were there in Disney World, and so many of us took a couple of nights and ran through, and I have a picture sitting in the Millennium Falcon in costume. So it was a highlight of February before quarantine really hit the United States. Okay, so our thought for today is to talk a little bit about things that are here in the Open Help workspace, and some of what I wanted to just chime in about and talk about a little bit are some of the things that I've enjoyed from the system. Oh, come on. The things I have trouble with is I can't quite see my tabs. Bingo, here. One of the first things I enjoyed out of being here is, again, that ability to share friends and things with people. This was posted by Jeremy. One of the first days that I remember paying attention to working in Open Help here. And I love a good technology or development related geek joke. And I cried laughing at this. This is one of my favorite jokes. I reposted my other favorite after this. So I'll give people a second more to absorb this one. And then go into that, my response to Jeremy when he posted this one in the random channel was one of my favorites. And there's really no good reason to bring this on screen other than it's brilliant. It's one of my favorite XKCDs, so it's worth time on screen and for people to absorb as well. Ah, yes, little Bobby drop tables. Okay, so within the Open Help system, we get into helping each other with questions and ideas and topics. And so, David, what I'll ask you to do while I'm kind of jumping from topic to topic is take a look through the chat and let's see if we have any questions come up right now from people who are online with us tonight, who want to ask questions and maybe have the group talk about them. And if any of us here who are online tonight have any questions that we want to bring up to the group, feel free to chime in and we will go through those. But otherwise,
I think Alex will take question number 1 for 100.
Dude, let's do it.
Can
Jump
you guys
right in.
hear me? Can you hear
Yes,
me?
hi.
Oh, okay. All right, perfect. I wasn't sure if it was like on, sometimes the calls you have to put your hand up and
No.
stuff, but I was late, so I'm sorry, but good to see
Hi,
all the
Alex.
faces. I've, interacted with a lot of you, if not all of you, on the chat in the past. So it's good to finally be. This is my first, session like this that I've been able to make it. So good. Thank you for having me. And going back to like the previous question, Slack has been invaluable to me and my team, especially to get some feedback from the gurus of DNN, and that instant feedback is honestly the best, because I've been through the forums on DNN, I've been through other places, and even if it's something tiny, it could take you hours, where here you get it in seconds, and that has saved me so much headache. So that alone has been great for me, and also to meet everybody else in the community, I find it was awesome. Just wanted to say hello to everybody. I'll let you guys proceed.
Well, that is a good intro, Alex. That's the point that proves the case of why we're kind of promoting this tonight. By sharing this with everyone, we're hoping to further promote that Slack workspace, get more people aware of it, and as we go into things like the community events like DNN Summit coming up, we try and help promote the DNN community website.
Yeah,
Open Help.
I'm more of a absorbing, right? I'm usually the guy asking questions, but every now and then, when I feel like I can answer any small question that's within my wheelhouse, I try to reciprocate and give back as much as I can. I'm nowhere near your guys' level, but I'm getting better at doing that.
That is absolutely the point. Absolutely. I might have shared in a couple of interviews years ago, but one of the reasons that I got involved publicly with the DNN community was back at the first economic downturn, back before 2007, 2008. And I realized I was part of the DNN community, and I knew many different people, knew their names, and had been helped by them. But I realized that work was slow. There weren't things going on that I could participate in a lot, but I had a lot of open time. And I decided that there and then, when I needed to post a question in the DNN forums, my rule for myself was going to be, if I post one question, I have to at least chime into or try and help answer two others. And it was kind of an idea to just start myself going. It didn't take much effort at all. The moment or two I got involved and realized how many things I could help with, or I could go look at or test something and become involved in someone else's problem, even if I didn't solve it right out, I could at least help. I could help them know they weren't alone and push it forward. And this is the culmination of that. This is instant helping people with those things.
And that really helps, just knowing that you're not alone, especially with everything that's available online, is good. It gives you some confidence, and I think that's great.
Mm-hmm.
That's a great part of the DNN community as a whole. I feel is different from other web technologies. You're all close knit.
That's like the quote that we take the quote, we put a picture of it, and we'll put it up on the wall. That is perfect. Well, so David, let me know if we get questions anywhere along the way, but I picked out a few different ones. There was a question a while back, and it's one that I didn't see answered well. And I thought about it because I have the same issue coming up with a client recently, and thought, when we're talking about this, we could talk about this as a roundtable discussion of what's involved. Maybe some of you who are fast on your feet could bring up some screenshots and point out some different pieces here. But one of the questions, and what I'll do is I will bring it here into DNN Open Help, and I will head into the general section. I'll say, let's
Ryan, are you doing something on your screen or
no,
somewhere
I'm
else?
about to. Sorry.
Oh, okay.
Bear with me 2 seconds.
Yeah.
No, I haven't moved very much in the last couple of seconds. I'm just tired enough I can't type and talk at the same time, so bear with me 2 more seconds.
Well, while you're doing that, I've got one question and answer that I can give. I had actually had this question the other day, and I was able to ask Daniel because he was available at the moment. But I thought maybe others would benefit from this. One of the things I was wondering is when you have 9.8.0 and you go through the manual removal of Telric, now that 9.8.1 is out, can you safely just upgrade and it will keep all of the stuff removed, or do you have to redo the manual removal of Telric?
Right, or does it add it back
I'm
in
going to let
again?
him
Yeah.
answer this because he taught me something that I didn't quite know about the upgrade process. So Daniel,
So before the change, because that was one of the challenges we had in order to release 9.8.1, before the changes I am going to mention, if you had files in the install/modules folder of your site, and it's a zip file, when you install DNN or upgrade DNN, those always install, no matter what. And the .resources files, those never install, no matter what. So you have to manually install them if you want. We made the change, Peter Dunker made a PR to make a change so that the .resources files, if you already have that package, but an older version, upon upgrades, it's gonna upgrade it, but only if you already installed it. So that's a cool enhancement for maintaining optional packages. One that comes to mind is the JWT package. So if you installed it, you would never get updates for it. Now you're gonna get it, because it's gonna install automatically upon upgrades only if you install it. So the same logic was applied for the new file manager and the deprecated libraries and everything. So if they're installed, they're gonna upgrade, so we can keep maintaining them for .1, .2, .3, whatever. But if you remove them, it's not gonna get replaced. And we had to make a change also to the build scripts, because now we kind of shifted the problem to a clean install. So if you're doing a clean install, then they wouldn't install, because now they're called .resources. So that was a PR from me in order for them to be named .zip in a clean install and .resources on an upgrade. So to answer the question, if you detelerict the site, which is a new term we coined, if you detelerict the site and you upgrade, it's not going to get reinstalled. And if you did not detelerict a site, then it's going to install the deprecated stuff until the DNN 10. And then we're going to change that we're going to remove.
Might get a little dizzy while I'm scrolling upwards, but it was just recently in the general channel, I think, where someone posted a graphic. Was it maybe Jeremy that posted a graphic? And they posted a graphic, and it was a deteleric graphic, and it was like an award that they were giving to their sites when they detelericted their site. Can't remember where that was. It was in a random channel or where it was.
Yeah, I did
There
that
we
in
go. Officially,
a site. It's in a, yeah. Don't
There you
use
go.
that, because 2 or 3 people pointed out it has a kind of a Nazi look to it by accident. Don't use it.
It's just part of the Telerik logo. But there you go. Point in case. Fun in Slack. So, Daniel, just so that I understand a nuance there, I have always told administrators and anyone who's a manager of a DNN instance that one of the things that DNN itself did with those resources is to keep them inert and to keep them identifiable, but that something is not a zip, it is a .resource. And that when you want to use it, it must be a .zip, but the .resources, you couldn't use them in that state. They were inert. They weren't zip files, they were .resource files. So you're saying that if something is within the installs modules folder and it's a .resource now, it would get installed during an upgrade process if an earlier version of that package is already installed. But if there is no installation of that package previously, it will remain unacted on.
Correct. Correct.
Okay.
And by the way, when you go in the persona bar to the available extensions, those resources show up there. That's the case with the JWT
Yes.
package, which is optional. So it's name.resources. So if you never installed it, no change. If you installed it in the past and we make updates to it, then when you upgrade DNN, it's going to also do those updates.
And that's for other extension types too, right? Not just for modules folder. So
Correct.
anything in the install directory structure. So
yeah.
Just a quick question about that. In the install, if you put third-party modules during an upgrade, will it install those like install packages as well if they're not core DNN modules? Okay.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, it's actually a good point. Some people had issues with that. It's a good point before an upgrade. If you inherited a site from somewhere else, sometimes there's a bunch of zip files there, and you just upgrade DNN, and boom, there's a ton of modules installed.
Yeah, one of my cleanup things when I inherit a site that I didn't work with for years, I will go and I will clean out that folder, because often if that site has been through multiple different upgrades, there will be different versions of things just sitting in the folder there. And like Daniel describes, if I'm not expecting it during an upgrade and I think I'm just doing a small version upgrade and all of a sudden 6 other modules update, I could get in, in some hot water of needing to back out of something that wasn't ready or what have you. So that's one of the things that I clean out when I'm inheriting a site. But just to mention another point there, that's on purpose. That folder is an active folder that you can run through with upgrade processes. So a couple of different points there. Number one, during development and build processes of applications, I know several clients who will, as part of their build processes, complete by connecting to their DNN instance and posting files to that location, and then just hitting the install resources URL out of that particular folder. And then that's the way that they make new versions of their modules and then post them to their own projects or to their own site. Similarly, I've been in situations where, for one reason or another, most often skin related, honestly, in someone's site where they've done something very strange with their skin, and the extensions module or the extensions page doesn't work correctly, and I'm having some type of issue. More than once, I've just thought, I don't even care to figure out the problem right now. I'm just going to drop a zip file in the folder, run the install, and I go from there. So it's important to think of that as an active folder that you can use. Here we go. No, that's actually one. I want the articles on that. So this is the page that I normally come to. No, this isn't it. Here we go. If you want to learn about some of the different types of things you can do with that install folder, this older wiki page is one of the pages that I either marked to try and get into the new DNN help system, or I already contributed to bring this over, because this is one that I go to regularly because I don't always remember these things, or I'm teaching or showing these to someone often enough. So this is a description of the different types of things you can do from that install folder and with those install pages. So you can kick off an upgrade by dropping everything in place and going ahead and calling that upgrade rather than being logged in. But you can also install resources. And so that is done by hitting that install ASPX and saying mode install resources, and it will at that point install any zip file that is inside of that install modules folder.
There are some caveats to those, but based on your web config, your configuration in web config, like for instance, if you don't have auto upgrade set to true or anything like that, then you won't be able to do that.
True, very true. Do you do anything to harden your sites to stop or block those kinds of things from happening, or do anything different with those, David?
Yes.
Well, you know, I turn off auto upgrade. True. I don't want to be in the middle of dropping things into place and, you know, a request from a user automatically hitting it. So there's some things that I know I do there, but for the most part, you know, this is something that I use often enough.
When you do complete an upgrade, oh, I remember there was some issues with 7.4.2 with this, and that got me into the habit of pretty much wiping out, or there was a specific set of pages that you had to delete, and then I think didn't get incorporated into when you complete an upgrade, it kind of gets rid of one of those pages that could be potentially harmful.
Yes. Yeah,
Okay.
there's several files in there that had some vulnerabilities in it, but DNN now handles that. I can't remember which version it was that really started that process, but there was a manual removal of some of the things in the file folder at that point. That was an area of vulnerability.
And it's safe to leave during that when you finish an upgrade now, whatever's in there after an upgrade?
Sort of. It depends on how old the site is, I think, because there may be some remnants.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep. Additionally, too, around that time period, manage.com hosting put in place an automatic script across their processes where they would look for and remove those files every few minutes from a folder if they were present. So I, you know, benefited from that and used that and enjoyed that as a, you know, help protection. You know, if I forget about it, I know they got it a little bit later. Sometimes it would trip me up if I, say, took a site offline and uploaded a bunch of files because I was going to do an upgrade, and then I got caught on a conference call and I came back to it 40 minutes later. Then I start to do the upgrade and it won't run, and I'm like, what on earth? Oh, it's already gone through and removed those files from the install folder while I was on the phone. So I've had to replace them a couple of times, but good memory and good thing to check on there.
Alex, if there's a question on whether or not that's in the right state, you know, for you, you can always take a fresh install, and before you actually kick off the install, compare that folder with your current production site, you know, and you can see what is there pre-install, and then you could see what there's after it install, and then kind of compare that with your production, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. I remember when that vulnerability came out, I switched everyone to 9. It was a big endeavor, but at least that got handled. Yeah. Thank you.
Sure thing. We had one question from Steve. Let's see. Oh, actually, I think we just answered that. Never mind.
Well, one that I pulled out of previous notes inside of Slack was something that I just put into the general channel, and David's already commented on it and started to reply with me, but it's about session timeout. And good point. I'm not sure I described it or wrote it up eloquently enough to start off with. But you're right, David. I was talking about the timing out and the user, and if they leave their session alone long enough, how long it takes before they lose their session because they're timed out. And it's something to talk about in the community often enough, because there are a lot of different things that impact that, and there's a lot of different ways that it can be based on your hosting environment also being involved. So I have a client right now who needs to increase the default. The default is normally 20 minutes. I feel like the underlying default of 20 minutes is an IIS level number. It's normally by default in all .NET applications where they're using these session states of an ASP.NET membership, right? It's 20 minutes.
The IIS default for an ASP.NET application, yes.
So in general, if a user leaves that screen and they come back 21 minutes later after not having done anything in that application to submit another page and refresh and keep that session alive, then they will be logged out, and whatever they were doing, whether you're a fail or it'll take them back to the login screen, or it will do whatever it's going to do because they've lost their session.
Well, unless you've done some of the stuff that Jeremy has recommended, you know, with the cookie and the remember me and all that.
That's exactly what I'm going to go towards here, because in a clear sense, what I have now as a client who needs to simply increase that to 30 minutes. And I need to go in and find those settings to change that from 20 minutes to 30 minutes. And thinking about Slack, I thought, oh, I remember there was a post on this a while back. What I'll do is I'll go look for that, find those notes, and then I'll follow that again. But it's worth bringing up, especially in a group like this, because there's a lot that's involved with it. Jeremy, I'm going to come to your item in just a minute. And David, I'm going to start kind of with your items here. To begin with, the web config allows you in DNN to set that number and change it so that you can increase it from being 20 minutes to 30 minutes or what have you, an hour. You can also decrease it and make it 5 minutes if you want to. I've been in some banking related sites where 5 minutes of inactivity is going to prompt you and start to kick you out. So there are a bunch of different timeout related things inside of the web config. Of course, you have large file upload timeout. You have a few different things. And so David, you mentioned execution timeout, but I think that is more for an active process that is running and doing something, such as a large file upload or some process it's doing before it decides it's hung and it quits that process.
Any kind
of
timeout request of some sort. Yep.
Mm-hmm. So timeout is part of the form, and that is more than likely the section where we're editing then to increase or to change. And that brings me to question number one, which is there any way to tell when that's not going to work? Because I have been within IIS instances where it doesn't matter what you set that number to in the web config, it's not going to take because it's being overridden or it's being defined at the IIS level and you can't change it at the web config level. So aside from sitting there for 30 minutes and waiting for it to time out, does anybody know, is there a good way to tell that's not going to work when you're at the application level?
It ain't gonna work normally because it's an IIS. I mean, it's a paradigm in ASP.NET security is for it to be 20 minutes.
So simply changing the form doesn't work ever in your experience? I feel like it has worked in some hosting environments, or am I not aware of something else that was also in place around in that scene or in that environment?
I am not aware of any way to actually change that, but there may be a way to do it. I just don't.
Wow. We're going over to Jeremy then. Let's pass you the mic there. Put you up on the stage. One of the things
I'm not aware
Jeremy
of any
posted here.
problems. If you can click on that article.
Yep.
Where is it? So scroll down to the section where you see timeout equals 120. So I've never had that not work. I can imagine situations where you might later in your web config have something that conflicts with it, but I've never had that not work. When you see that timeout 120, that's in minutes, and that's me setting it for 2 hours, and I've always had that work reliably. And the default is 20 minutes. And then you continue on though, the newer setting under app settings for persistent cookie timeout, that's tied to the remember me checkbox. And that's where you can give the user the option to let the normal timeout happen, or like we do here on our staging sites, we leave ourselves logged in. We usually have it for 4 days so that we survive a weekend.
So a couple of things to chime in with there. We had a client who had 100 or so portals inside of their system. It was a city government related site, and they had a network of organizations within each portal, and they wanted people to be logged in and never have to remember to log in again. They wanted them to last a whole week. If they came in and logged in on Monday, they wanted them to still be logged in on Friday. And so before we were involved in the site, they had increased this this session time to be something like 3 weeks. They made it huge. And it was okay when they had a small handful of people using their website. But when they had hundreds and hundreds of people using their website, they would say, wow, it's just crawling. It is using server resources like mad. And, you know, I'm having all these problems in the website when I go from here to here to here. And I'm like, well, first thing I'm going to tell you is that this is the longest session time I've ever heard of. So maybe 4 days sounds reasonable, but there's definitely a top end. You don't want to go and keep it so that you're just logged in forever. There are resource implications to the application and what it's doing if it keeps every single user who's ever touched the thing logged in for a very long amount of time. There are also security concerns and some other things. There also, though, are hosting environments where, yes, and performance. There are also hosting environments where, regardless of the settings, it gets ignored. And I was describing a minute ago the downside where I wanted to increase it and I couldn't. I've also had to be the opposite. There's some hosting environments where we'll have a DNN website and I'll log in and I'll come back a week later and I'm still logged in as a host. And I'm thinking, whoa, I didn't time out. Why am I still logged in here? And that one server, you just never log out. You're just perennially in it. And it must be that it has something like a 2-week time period or something. So I know that the environment has an ability to make an impact.
Hey, Ryan, I just posted in there how you can configure it at an application pool level, and it's the idle timeout. And the default
Thank you. That's kind of where I was going with. I don't know where that is in IIS, and I would love to learn about that. Is that at the individual application pool of the DNN instance, or is this at the main server level?
Each
or just applications?
It's the app pool that is running your site. So, I mean, kind of hard to answer though.
It's inherited though. So you have a global config that sets the kind of the defaults for every new site, and then each site can have its own settings. So the things you see in bold, those are local settings for this one, and the things you see not in bold, they are the default inherited from the global config.
Correct.
And don't forget, if you don't like to use UIs like we're looking at right there in that screenshot, we regularly, or at least I do, you can dig into .NET and find these settings. It's used to be an XML file in the old days. Now it's a config file. I think it's called application host.config. And all of these settings are in there. And so you can see what the original set is for ASP.NET, and then for each site and therefore application pool, you can override those settings. But you can go back and find what the originals are. And it's fun to read through. You'll find a lot of stuff that you forgot about and you should probably delete, because IIS is not very good about fixing itself. There's a lot of garbage in that file.
I always set that to 0 for everybody, just so the websites are always on. Do you guys do that too, or?
You set which to 0? The idle timeout?
I set the idle timeout always to 0, so it just doesn't time out. Because I noticed basically if nobody's on the site, it will shut it down, and then the first request that comes in, it's always a little bit slow to spin back up.
So that issue that you're describing, we refer to as a keep alive type of problem. And with .NET applications, what Alex is describing is that IIS, when it sees no activity for a certain period of time, it will spin down that application. And then the first person who hits it, it launches or loads up that application, an application pool starting up again. So the first person who hits it, it could take 30 seconds before it loads a page, because it's building up all those different steps And so in the past, old DNN days, doing a keep alive was a common thing. And there were a bunch of different ideas. If you search DNN keep alive, there are different ideas of how to do that. Pingdom is a kind of famous free keep alive that you can use to have it just hit the home page of your website or hit some page of your website every 5 minutes, every 15 minutes. As long as it hits it under 20, then it can keep it alive and keep it going.
Hey Ryan, just a trick, don't let it hit the home page. Hit the actual keep alive page, because that's the purpose of that page and DNN.
That's what I was going to say.
So that you don't mess up your stats and stuff with bias.
So you
I have a
guys are
couple
going
notes on that too.
to put this back to 20 and use the keep alive functions built in to DNN as opposed to just disabling
that
and
is
have it
there on purpose in ASP.NET applications. It's not a DNN thing. It's an ASP.NET thing. It's their purpose for security.
Okay.
Yep.
And also the keep alive, it's just a target page. You need to have some external thing doing a get, doing a request of the page.
Correct.
And that's, we use NodePig, for example. So we have our different sites. Some of them node ping every 5 minutes. Some of them do 15 or 30 minutes. It depends on how busy the site is. But yeah, I think it's still worth doing. We still do it that way. I didn't like it when you suggested setting that idle timeout to 0. That's scary.
Overview.
I leave the default 20 minutes there, and I use Uptime Robot, which is another service to monitor websites on that Keep Alive page. And one note I want to add, there's another setting. I know this is just a picture, but if you scroll down, there's a setting for, well, you can scroll down on the image, but there's a setting to actually enforce a restart. So I do a forced restart at 3 a.m. because you don't want a site running for a year without ever restarting. So 3 a.m. I do a restart. And there's an array.
Yeah, no, you're dead on. If we were in IIS right now, if you right click on the application pool, you'll actually notice there's a command to recycle in the context menu, but a few down from there's one that says recycling ... and you get a nice little UI. So what we do is we have a lot of our sites recycle at 1 a.m. and 5 a.m. late at night. And I started doing that in about 2014. Prior to that, we used to have all kinds of problems with app pools freezing up after a while. And all of those problems went away just by going to the nightly automatic recycling. But we do it twice, not once.
Gentlemen, I have not heard that as a tip, and I'm thrilled. I'm going to do that the second I get back into IIS and sites.
And I do it about half an hour before I do my automated backups, because that's gonna also clear content cache. So the backups are
That's really important. We use a spreadsheet for all of our DNN backups, and there's like 111 in there now. But in that spreadsheet, we actually keep track of what time of night we're doing those recycles, because if they collide, your backup fails.
Yeah.
What do you guys use for backups? Sorry, go ahead. No, I don't. We'll wait. We'll wait before we go forward on that one. That's a big one. Okay. Yes, I know Evotiva.
I'm a big promoter for Evotiva Backup. It's one of my favorite tools. I put it into every DNN instance that I touch. I then put together a schedule of 2 or 3 different types of backups. I will normally do a database only backup twice a week, and I will do a full system, so that's database and folder file structure backup once a week. Now, this is in addition to or aside from whatever I have going on at the hosting environment. Because the primary purpose of the Evotiva Backup for me is to get it external. So I get it out to the AWS cloud, I get it out to an external FTP location, I get it out to Dropbox, I get it out to somewhere else. And sometimes I'll have it also go as a secondary to the clients themselves as a secondary location, so that we have multiple hands-on backups. My hosting company preferences are to rely and to trust my hosting companies, and they have backups. I can call them on the phone and say, hey, what's the freshest backup you've got? And they've got one from 12 hours ago. Lovely. I love it. Let's go for it. but there are times when they can't reach their backup, or I can't reach their backup on my backup on their system. Having it external is peace of mind. It's set it and forget it kind of things. Now, you got to check on them every once in a while, make sure they're still running, make sure that they're still viable. But for the most part, Evativa's DNN backup helps me do that. So I set a couple of different schedules and I get it going, and then that's my primary backup. I enjoy using Managed for hosting. I use a few different companies for hosting, but I enjoy using Managed for the hosting. They have a couple of control panels that have some controls so that you have special kinds of backups you can do. Those are pretty fantastic as well. So those are my two primary answers for backup there.
I host everything that we do, we host ourselves. So I have more access, I guess, to the core operating system. But I've always looked into some way of automating directly from SQL and eventually Windows, zipping up the file structure and stuff like that. But I'll do a write-up and post it somewhere eventually.
Yeah, I do
Yeah,
SQL. I have a couple of command line scripts that run as a schedule task that do a backup and trims the database. And then I have a backup solution that pulls from that folder and the hosting files. And no matter what solution you use, there's tons of out there. But the important thing, you should always have your backups elsewhere. If you back up where you host, you're not backing up, you're just copying.
Yeah,
the backup needs to be elsewhere. Yeah.
Yeah, I back up to different machines and I back up the virtual machines themselves, but I am looking to probably send something to Azure, for example, as a tertiary backup.
It's never too much.
Yeah, when you need it, it's a vast amount of benefit. And if you don't have it, you're dead in the water.
One thing really quick that has always come up for many clients when you guys were mentioning about the timing out. I've had many instances where I'll have, I don't know, a client that's doing something on the website and they walk away, they come back maybe 20 minutes later and they've timed out, but yet they didn't submit this form that they spent, I don't know, 30 minutes typing or whatever, and all that gets lost. And I was always curious to know if there's some sort of baked in system that could warn a user, hey, you're about to get timed out, like an online banking, or if that's something that would have to be made.
You build it.
Okay.
It's something you build or something you have. It seems to be a fairly frequent need, and I get the sense that any one of our smart heads in the room here tonight could build a little open source app module that could be dropped in that would do that. Myself, I do that with
we kind of mix two things though. The 20 minutes IIS restart, this restarts the site. The timeout for one user, that's a DNN config.
Yeah,
right. And we kind of went full circle.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up.
Again,
there's so many different things here to consider. There's session state, there's user state, there's so many things. So when we talk about timeout, it's not a one thing fixes what you're trying to accomplish. So it's
the word timeout applies to different things.
Yeah, and I think that use case of filling up a large form and it takes you more than 20 minutes, that would be the DNN web config setting that's going to change the when the cookie expires, the authentication cookie. And I think that solves that long form.
And that's more what we were first talking about with with Jeremy's point here with this application cookie and keeping that longer. And that kind of brings it around full circle. But Alex, I build a lot of things in Xmod Pro. It's the main thing that I do heavy development in. And I have an Xmod Pro template and code that I drop onto multiple different sites, and it does just what you described, the banking style alert. So normally it has some variables to it, but if it's 20 minutes is the normal timeout, at the normal timeout minus 5 minutes, it will prompt you with a modal or a gray box pop-up that says your session is about to expire. Click here to refresh this page, or click cancel to close and continue what you're doing, but you have 5 minutes. That way the user knows. And if they've gone away for coffee and that screen comes up, then at least when they come back, they know they've got to take action quickly. The second thing that does is if they do click refresh, then it just refreshes the page, which continues their session on. They've lost everything in that form, though. And the other thing that I've put into this X1 Pro version is if they don't do anything and that pop-up stays open, once it gets to 30 seconds before their session would expire, I actually go ahead and hit the log off action so that it logs off and returns the user to the login screen. That way, when they come back from that bathroom break and their session is out, they don't still just have the form open and think, okay, I'm going to go and I'm going to hit submit, and then they're crushed because it's gone. At least they know it's gone, because when they come back, they're on the login screen and they go, oh my God, no, what happened? They don't try and submit it, because often I feel that sometimes support call centers will get calls because they'll say, I submitted the form and it didn't take. Well, that's an angry call versus I came to the website and it was on the login screen. Well, you know what happened if it was on the login screen. There's a mystery if you're still in the middle of your form. So that action isn't a module that I'm aware of. I don't know, it could be out there, but I've built one of my own and I use that pretty regularly. Well, we are here at 7:45 and we covered one or two different topics inside of Slack conversations, and this is exactly what the point of this meeting was, is so that we could all get together and talk about how we use the Slack system and how we get benefit out of it. And then we dove in and we went in one topic and kind of went around in a big good circle. With a few minutes left here, that way we can kind of close out around 8 o'clock. Let me ask a couple of questions or throw them out here, see if we have any that we want to jump into. You know, Steve is here, and I might mention that we could talk about CK editor related things, because even just recently in the general channel, there were questions about the CK editor and about doing different things in the CK editor. If I can jump to it enough.
There's this awesome feature called search in there right at the top if you just want to type in the phrase.
I will tell you that I am not a fan of Slack's search features because I experience it not finding things.
Oh, wow.
Plenty of times. There are some things that I like. I like how when you pin something, when you search, it comes to higher in the different things. But you know, there are.
Well, now I see why you don't like it. You
didn't hit I use it a lot.
You clicked something.
What do you mean? How do you use it?
Type CK.
He's right. Just type the word and then hit enter.
File. Yeah, just type the word and then hit enter. Just hit enter. There you go.
Users.
Of course, I get to this screen often enough. I was going to jump to the picture and then jump to the thread from there. So, you know, here, even around December and around the end of the year, Renee came in and said, hey, does anyone have, you know, good references on editing the CK editor and abilities in the CK editor? And of course, Steve, I'm going to pass the mic to here in a second, you know, has posted a lot of blog articles recently regarding this. And so, you know, you can see here that people come in and they start asking questions about things like, you know, can I do X with the CK editor? And how do I do Y with the CK editor? You know, I think that shows you that people are using it and working within it and trying to customize it here, talking about it in Slack. And then you get, you know, folks conversing and talking in places like the dnncommunity.org website, and then they take that conversation or that nugget of conversation and they turn it into a blog post and they turn it into something larger. So that's kind of what I was going to finish with, or wanted to get the point across in, if you use Slack and you are using it to talk about something and you realize that somebody's asked a really good question and there's a lot of depth to it, and you realize, hey, I'm going to gather all this good information together and I'm going to put it somewhere, then putting it out here in the blogs and in the forum of dnncommunity.org is the way to take these conversations and turn them into content that others can benefit from outside of Slack. I think the CK editor information is a good example of something that kind of bridges that that section.
Can
Steve,
anybody
let's ask you a
post
couple-
on DNN?
on the community.org, you can once
You
you've
can
registered and
request
created
that.
an account,
Yeah, you can request,
can request it.
and we'll set you up. It's
absolutely.
It's not like where you can just go there and post immediately, but just request it, and one of us will set you up as a blogger.
You can post in the forums directly, but if you wanted to have a blog post and post blogs, you can request that and get right in there. Absolutely. So, Steve, with the information you've put together here in the realm of the CK editor, do you have more articles coming up, more ground to cover, or are these two the ones you're stopping at for the moment?
No, I definitely have a third article in mind I want to write about, and that's installing an upgraded version of the CK editor, because this one is extremely outdated. I think in one of the blogs I wrote, I think there's like 30 some odd updates since the version that's embedded in DNN, and I think 6 of them or so were security updates. So I think we really need to look at getting into a more recent version of the CK editor. And then there's a few other tweaking tricks that I think we should take a look at as well.
Steve, it's actually coming in 9.9.0. Stefan Campos already updated it, and the pull request has been merged. So
I think I'll still go ahead and write it, because I know there's going to be a lot of people out there that, due to themes, may be stuck on a specific version of DNN, and I think they would definitely benefit from upgrading CK editor. That's kind of how I got into figuring out all these things about the editor. Is I have a site, one of the sites I manage, unfortunately, is until I can get the skin updated, is stuck on 9.2.2 or 9.2.1, and the editor wasn't working in it, and so I had to figure out how to get it to work correctly.
Do you guys find yourselves, I mean, in my experience, I've been starting to use like the HTML module in general less and less. In the beginning, like 7.4.2, you know, you would use it, you would put your HTML into it. It was a great tool for someone who knows what they're doing, but for like my client who doesn't know anything about CSS or HTML, I find myself lately using the HTML module, in this case the CK editor, drastically, like barely on any sites other than something where I would have to put a token in there. I'm using like Easy DNN content builder. The DNN Go has their content thing, and it's kind of drag and drop. I don't know. Do you guys are still using it often, or?
Well, I'm kind of like Ryan, I'm kind of big on Xmod Pro, and then David turned me on to, what is it, Open Content, which is pretty darn cool.
Okay.
Yeah, we have the majority of our sites now are have no HTML modules anywhere and only use Too Sexy content.
Yeah, Too Sexy is another one that always looked interesting. I use a lot of DNN Sharp, almost every site, at least for the forums. And the content builder from DNN Go is pretty cool when you need to do quick things like images, you know, nothing super in depth, but just visually, it makes it very simple. I was wondering if DNN themselves might be releasing, because they have to, I get you're competing with kind of Squarespace, Wix, and all them, but those platforms make it super simple for you to just basically drag and drop a pre-built thing. You just change a couple things and you're kind of good to go.
One of the things that I can say with pride here, Alex, is that your phrasing. You said, you know, with DNN themselves, we're DNN. You're
Well,
DNN.
yes, yes. Okay.
We are DNN. If we want to change something, then we are the ones who do it. There's
Right.
no other they. It's us.
Right. That's true. It is. Yeah, I gotta get into that mindset. But yeah, I mean, I feel like something like that would be cool, and I get my team to probably. I find us using it very often in-house, like for all our clients. So, if we develop our own version of it with, every time we do a skin, there's usually short codes, and for just basic
Yeah.
sites, for a client that needs a presentation site for their business with not too much heavy functionality, something like that could be interesting. I don't know.
There are a range of modules that are out there that delve into the space that you're talking about, and some of them go a few steps towards that. Some of them dive all the way in head first. So there are some things that are out there that you can look into. Some of it is, can be as simple as some interface changes, like Daniel Metler's, Smeltzer. Smeltzer's DNN Shine gets you towards some of the easy look of some of those things where you mentioned Wix and Squarespace and stuff. But the other things with DNN Sharp has some solutions and combinations that really get you towards that drag and drop section content, which is all at the end of the day being saved inside of an HTML module. Mandeep is also doing some more things that are in that direction. And again, it's building and saving inside of an HTML module, and it's just a templater. It's just a way of gathering together different blocks of code and content. It's not data smart. It's not database driven. Many of those things.
Correct.
I myself would prefer to build with, again, I am invested intellectually and concept and history with stuff on the shelf in Xmod Pro, but people do that as well with things like Too Sexy. So me, I'd rather keep it data driven, but there are some modules that help you make that type of interface experience if you have customers or administrators who are going to be doing stuff.
Yeah, agreed. I'm pretty much solely using DNN as a platform, and I explain and give it as many stars as I can to any client or prospect that I'm speaking to. So I try to push. I don't use WordPress. I don't use pretty much any other CMS. So I really push DNN. But everybody has different type of clients. I have some big ones that are very involved, and a lot of small guys that really it's just a presentation website. So for them, they feel that it's they see that it's super easy to drag and drop something. So it's more involved in explaining that to them. So if I can make the process easier, I think I could maybe we can expand DNN to a more broader kind of user base.
So that's almost a good topic for a whole nother meeting. But when we discussed that the last time, a year or maybe a little more now, one of the sentiments that was expressed was that maybe for those clients who want it to be more simple, maybe stepping up and making it a full service that you do for them, where you just do all the work for them. They don't have to get involved. Is an even better way to step it up to a level that they're even more thrilled with, and then you don't have to spend time explaining to them how to drag and drop something between panes and things. Back as on screen, just as another thing to mention, the CK editor that ships defaults with DNN for a while has been an older version, and even the one that was the DNN Connect version was still an older version than the one that I always install. This one is, one of the second or third things I install in any DNN instance, 7 and above. And this is just another version of the CK editor. This version at least gets higher up enough in version number so that it's not going to manipulate your code when you put in JavaScript and a few different types of things that CK editor is apt to pervert your code. So this version is one that I use, and it's quite old. So I'll definitely be welcoming a newer version that's going to get us a even newer version of CK editor. But if you're just dealing with your default DNN install, this is a good way to at least upgrade and get a slightly newer version. So Steve, I don't know if you were aware of this one, but this is one of the main ones that I use.
Yeah, actually, that is the one I used to fix the problem I had on my older site, and that worked
Yep.
slick. I mean, it was really nice.
Mm-hmm.
I do have to add,
Well,
this,
folks,
this is the first time I've been
Okay.
fried Southern style, and I've thoroughly enjoyed it.
We are glad you were here with us. Everybody, this is fantastic. Fantastic user group meeting. You know, if this was your first time here, we're thrilled. If you've watched online, you know, and watched the recaps of things after the fact, we do get a fair amount of people watching during the work the next day or doing work later in the week. But we love having people here online with us. If you're participating for the fun of it, or if you're just joining the peanut gallery and you want to help heckle us, it's part of the fun of being here together. I you know, tell my wife and everyone that this is my group of drinking buddies. If I get together once a month and I hang out with everyone, we talk about problems. And already today, I have my post-it note of 2 or 3 tips that I've been using DNN since version 2.5, and I had never learned some of these tips, or I had never heard of some of these things exactly this way. And you always get something new out of community interaction, I think. Well, with that, we're going to start wrapping up here tonight's meeting. We will have our next meeting. It's always the 3rd Thursday of the month, so we'll be meeting February the February the 18th. Say again, David.
Yeah. We got DNN Summit following week, so
exactly. I was going to say, so we're meeting right before DNN Summit, so we might have an abbreviated meeting as we're all still crunching and preparing for things, so we can have a larger community event. But so we will see everyone February the 18th for user group meeting, and then we hope to see everyone at the DNN Summit event just after that. Thank you again to everybody who helped participate, and if you haven't already registered for DNN Summit, that'll be my closer. Is go register, and we'll see you soon.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Stop my
Have a
screen.
good night.